If you're between 1200 and 1900 rating and you've played a game before and you're not sure what to do in the opening because your opponent surprises you or you can't remember your lines, I want you to watch this video. In this game, I play against a 2100 and they play an opening I'm not really familiar with. So rather than me trying to analyze and burn time just to try to remember the one really strong move in the opening, I decided to just play chess fundamentals. So a lot of things I could talk about in this video. Definitely, if you want to get better at openings and just make sure you do the basics and the fundamentals, then I would watch here. So sit back; it's gonna be a good time. Okay, 2147. I decided to play e4. Again, try and play your most comfortable. I've seen d6, so I'm thinking, okay, there might be playing some sort of modern defense. Knight c6 is a little bit confusing. I didn't expect that. So here I'm kind of just thinking, well, let me just take some free space, get my pawns out, and then just kind of develop. I'm not trying to burn too much time. e6 is a normal move because you want to put pressure on d5, so bishop c4 seems very natural, defending the pawn. Again, I'm not trying to think too far ahead in this game. All I'm trying to do is to develop and put my pieces on good squares. Now, there might have been some missed opportunities of maybe I could have pushed d5 or could I went further, but in all honesty, it's probably a safe bet to just castle, especially if you're playing against someone that you know that's at least at your strength or that has that bit of difficulty. You're usually going to get off castling as the safe option, and more importantly, to just not blunder in the opening. So again, I'm just playing fundamentals. I'm not trying anything tricky. I'm just trying to get my rook active, put some control in the center. As you can see, my mouse is kind of hovering around a4 because I'm expecting my opponent to play some sort of a6 line, which they do. So a4, again, very useful for any type of a6 because you don't want black to expand on b5 right away. And in this position, I'm not really trying to attack black's king side. Black's pretty heavy, has a double knights on the g6 and f6 square. Very solid, but not exactly... has a little lack of space. So right now, I'm just thinking, okay, I'm not sure what to do here. I don't know what the main lines are. I still don't know this opening. But I definitely want to get my bishop out. I just don't know where to put my bishop on c1. Maybe I'm thinking e3, maybe I'm thinking d2. But the goal is to get my bishop next and my queen next so I can get my rooks connected. And then once I have that, all my pieces out, I am now flexible to kind of figure out what I want to do. So black goes g4, tries to take the bishop on e3. I considered going bishop d4, but I realized, you know what, why don't I just play queen d2 and do the simple trade. And now I have all my pieces out. And my opponent goes e5. I wasn't sure why. I was really expecting e takes d5. But I decided to take because if the knight takes and I take, I get a pawn on d5 that could potentially go to d6 later. And I recognize this. So I decided to go for the trade and then just kind of develop my rook to the center. Now, I have to be a little bit careful. So in these type of positions, you have to be aware of this queen-king kind of diagonal. So you know that even though you're kind of developing the center and you have a little bit more tempo, you have to be aware of the danger that, you know, they play b6, we're going to have to burn a move playing queen h1 or moving their queen out of the way. So my opponent really capitalizes on playing, even though they're behind in development, they're playing these very like proactive moves that are developing and attacking one of my pieces to kind of slow me down a little bit. Bishop g4 doesn't really slow me down because I can move my rook out, but more importantly, you just got to be aware of these possible weaknesses. So my mind immediately goes, oh no, both my king is on dark squares, same diagonal. I gotta eventually get out of here. But first, I gotta resolve the rook on d1 being attacked. Yeah, so now I'm considering all my options. I'm thinking maybe I want to block with a bishop on e2. That'll allow me to, if bishop takes, I can go knight to e2, and maybe move my knight around. But I didn't really see a great spot to put my knight, so I decided to play this really odd rook d3 move, which I anticipate that maybe once I can move my queen out of the way, I can get my rook onto the f3, g3, or h3 square. Now my opponent plays b6, very normal, got a burn move. And again, I'm just moving pretty fast. So again, my opponent's up ahead on time. It's not a big deal right now. So now I kind of made an error. I said, oh, maybe I can go pawn d6, cause some problems. In hindsight, I probably should have burned a little bit more time thinking about this. I kind of went more with intuition than calculating, which is not the worst thing to do. You know, if you have good intuition, trust it. But I just didn't have a really proper follow-up. Because if I go knight d5, they're just going to take my pawn. I didn't. And now this is where I kind of encounter that problem where I'm a little hesitant because I should have thought of this beforehand and then make the move. So it makes sense to think about your moves, especially if it's a critical move, beforehand, because if you decide to go with based on intuition and you make the move right now, and then you realize, oh wait, this is not the best move, now you're going to have some problems. And now you're going to burn more time anyway. So a little bit of inexperience. So I'm glad that I took my time to not take the c pawn because I found bishop d5, which was a great move. Getting my bishop on a stronger square. Because now I can move it from d5, attack the rook on a8, the rook moves around to b8 most likely, and then I can play bishop c6 and just get my bishop on a better square. Even here though, I'm still not sure what to do with this d-pawn because I really don't want to lose it. Yeah, so my opponent plays rook e6, and now it's like, oh, this pawn's like not meant for this world. So again, I'm burning more time. I'm not on time control problems yet, like not right now, but again, I'm aware about my opponent's 8 minutes. If they wanted to, they can play a little bit faster, play a little bit more, I would say a little risque, and that would just put more time pressure on me. Okay, knocking the bishop off on g4. Now, I am thinking, could they like take the e4 pawn first, and then, but then I wouldn't mind it because I can get my knight into the game with e4, and then maybe I can cause some problems that way. I'm attacking the bishop on c5, which is a very strong bishop. I have some options if they take the e4 pawn. Yeah, I can also take the bishop on g4. So yeah, right now, and especially if you're playing these 10-minute games, you really got to be thinking not just what you're trying to do, but what your opponent's trying to do. You're trying to calculate as far ahead as much as possible, trying to get an idea of what they're trying to do. So rook h6, I didn't see that. And I knew I was a little bit... I felt a little uneasy in this position. Because there's that permanent pin. There's always some sacking opportunities on h3, although I have a rook on d3, so I'm not worried about sacking at the moment. But now this is where I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know what to do here. Because I could take the pawn on e5 with my queen, but they go bishop d6, and now they just have all this pressure on the e5 to h2 square diagonal. But I also have my own pressure. I have a rook on d3, it's pressuring the queen. My knight's ready to come into the game. My rook on e1 is pretty solid. I'm not exactly coordinated here, though. So this is really good because I'm really taking my time. I recognize that, yeah, I'm going to get lower and lower on time, but I need to. This is a really critical position. And sometimes we just have to recognize when it's critical, and we just got to burn that amount of time to make sure we can come up with the most accurate set of moves as possible. And again, I'm not thinking about like what's my next immediate move. I'm thinking about the next few immediate moves. What am I going to do? What's my opponent going to do in response to that? What I'm going to do after. So I decided to take the pawn on e5. I realized, hey, I have no choice, and not to mention I have some counterplay. If that my e4 pawn can go to f5, I might be able to swing my rook to e8 eventually, do some back row threats. So I'm aware of these back row threats, so I'm kind of thinking maybe I have a chance. So I'm thinking my opponent's going to go to queen h4, which is still okay for me. I'm assessing, because I have now pawn e5 as a... they went queen g5. I didn't expect that move. Slightly surprising. I'm not so sure what queen g5 does over queen h4. Maybe because if I take the f pawn on f5, they can't move the bishop because it's the queen's pinned, but the queen's defended by the rook, so I'm not sure. But anywho, I'm starting to get the feeling my position is getting slightly better. And it was really because of taking the time and not taking the pawn on c7 and finding bishop d5. But I'm still not 100% sure how to break through. So now I'm thinking if I take the f pawn, I could just open my rooks and queens up. So I have all these possible threats. Yep. Now I'm looking at knight e4. Pretty strong move. Finally getting the knight back in the game, and it's attacking everything. So I expect that knight to not be in this world much longer. It's causing too much pressure. Pre-moves, very important to do. If you know how to pre-move, I would pre-move. If you know it's a move that's going to most likely guarantee happen. Yeah, so this is where my opponent completely blundered. So immediately I see the tactic. I'm thinking knight takes d6, queen takes queen, and then I have the so I have the knight f7 fork attacking the king and the rook, which means the king goes to g8, and now I can take the rook on h6 with check, and this is completely winning. I get a free piece, and I got active rooks, and there's a backwards c7 pawn that I can go after. Unfortunately, my opponent missed this resource I have. And to be fair, I didn't even expect them to play this. So, again, work on your tactics, because you can spot these things right away. And again, I'm a little low on time. So now, for me, it's kind of a blitz game. And blitz, you really have to kind of go really based on intuition. It's very hard to think. Yeah, so, I'm just double checking. And again, taking that little extra few seconds to double check doesn't really harm anybody. You want to try and play your absolute best. But yeah, I'm up a rook here. This is completely winning. I can close my eyes and win this against anybody. I can play rook e7, I can play rook d7. Everything wins. And my opponent realizes this and resigns. So, a little couple of recaps. Yeah, so fundamental chess, really important. If you run into an opening that you just don't know how to deal with, again, get your pieces out, control the center as best as possible, castle. That's the best thing you can do. And then just kind of wait and see what your opponent does. Make sure you know when to recognize all the critical movement times to, take your time and burn a minute or two. Make sure you're finding the right move, because if you miss it, then all that time you saved up and that advantage that you're trying to gain, it's not going to work out. And finally, tactics. Tactics is king. It makes things easier. If I wasn't as so good at tactics, I might have missed that, or I might have burned more time, and now my opponent doesn't resign. They decide to push me because I'm only at 1 minute left, knowing that they could potentially push me out and lose the game. So I hope this video helps. There'll be more of these videos coming soon, whether we're doing blitz or rapid. And yeah, stay tuned. If you like this format, you like the way I'm approaching this game and this analysis, you think it's very helpful, please like and share and subscribe, and give me a comment below. It really makes a big difference. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.